The accidental step. The black of space stretched forever, cold and endless. A single human ship drifted there, its engines humming softly as it crossed the silent void. The crew did not know they had already crossed into someone else's territory. They had not seen the hidden borders marked by beacons. To them it was just another patch of stars, another place to explore. Inside the ship, Captain Mason sat in the command chair, his eyes fixed on the front screen. "Coordinates stable, scanners clear," his pilot said, calm as ever. The ship's crew were explorers, not soldiers, yet each of them carried the quiet courage of people who had grown on Earth. They had faced storms, wars, hunger, and fire. Fear was not new to humanity, and fear was not welcome here, far away, hidden across the sector. The Galactic Empire's sensors came alive. For thousands of years, no species dared to enter their territory without permission. Those who tried were crushed quickly, erased from maps, their names forgotten. But today, something strange appeared. A ship too small, too weak, carrying a banner no one recognized. The symbol of Earth, unknown to the galaxy, now glowed on their screens. "Unidentified vessel has entered the red expanse," one Imperial officer said, his voice sharp. The command hall was filled with towering figures, creatures of many alien races, all sworn to the Empire. They watched the human ship drift calmly, unaware of the trap it had just walked into. "Prepare interceptors," the Empire's commander ordered, his voice filled with cold steel. "No one enters our realm without kneeling first." Back on the human ship, the crew felt the first signs of change. A warning alarm echoed as scanners picked up movement. Several large ships were approaching fast, their hulls armed with weapons that could tear through steel like paper. The pilot's hand froze over the controls. "Captain, unknown ships inbound." Mason did not blink. He only leaned forward, his face calm. "Hold course," he said. "Do not run, do not show fear." The aliens expected panic. They expected humans to cry out or beg for mercy. Instead, the human ship slowed slightly, but kept its path steady. Inside the Imperial fleet, the commander narrowed his eyes. "Strange," he muttered. "Most races tremble when they first see our warships. But this one, it does not flinch." The interceptors closed in, surrounding the small vessel like wolves circling prey, weapons charged, targeting systems locked. A message was sent across the void, sharp and commanding. "This is the Galactic Empire. You have crossed into our domain. Power down your engines, surrender, and kneel before the Council." The words carried the weight of centuries of fear, of thousands of conquered worlds. No one had ever refused, not once. The human crew listened in silence, the translator repeating the alien words in English. One officer clenched his fists, another swallowed hard. But their captain rose slowly from his chair, his voice steady. "This is the ship Odyssey, from Earth," Mason said. "We do not kneel." The comms went quiet on the Empire's bridge. Silence followed. Every alien officer froze, their eyes wide, their bodies tense. Never had such words been spoken back to them. Never had anyone refused. The commander's jaw tightened, his claws curling against the arm of his throne. "Repeat that," he demanded, though he had heard it clearly. The human voice came again, calm and certain. "We do not kneel." Whispers spread across the Empire's fleet. Who were these humans? This fragile new race that dared to defy an empire of countless worlds. They had no great weapons, no mighty fleets, yet they stood unbroken. And in that single moment, fear changed sides. For the first time in ages, it was the Empire that began to wonder, what kind of people wander into the heart of giants? And refused to bow. The captain sat back down, his crew holding their breath. The alien ships hovered, waiting for the order to strike. But still the humans did not flinch. They had taken the first accidental step into the Empire's heart, and with that one step, the galaxy would never be the same. The Council of Giants, the order was given, and the human ship was surrounded. Imperial warships locked their weapons, but instead of firing, they escorted the Odyssey deeper into the Empire's core. It was not mercy, it was curiosity. The Council wanted to see these humans for themselves. No one refused the Empire and lived long. And yet this small crew had dared. The journey was tense on the viewing screens. The humans saw endless fleets, space stations larger than cities, and planets chained by the Empire's banners. Everywhere they looked, alien life bowed down, silent and broken. But the humans watched without fear. If they were intimidated, they never showed it. At last, the Odyssey was pulled into a vast docking bay. The humans were ordered to step out, surrounded by guards that towered above them. Some aliens had scales, some had horns, some carried wings that shimmered in the artificial light. The humans looked small in comparison, fragile against giants, but they walked with steady steps, shoulders straight, eyes sharp, not one knee bent, not one head lowered. The Galactic Council chamber was carved from stone older than memory. Its ceiling was so high that shadows swallowed its peak. Rows of alien leaders filled the hall, each one representing a species that had once resisted and had been broken. Whispers filled the chamber. "Another prey species," one muttered. "They will kneel before the day ends." Another said. All expected the same ending as always. At the center of the hall stood the High Consul, a massive being with a crown of metal fused to his flesh. His voice echoed like thunder. "Strangers, you have entered our empire without permission. You have spoken words no tongue is allowed to speak. Now you will kneel or you will be erased." The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned to the humans, waiting for the trembling, the fear, the surrender. But Captain Mason stepped forward, his boots heavy on the stone floor. He looked up at the towering consul, and in a voice calm as steel, he answered, "Humanity does not kneel." The words struck the chamber like lightning. Alien leaders leaned forward, guards hissed, weapons powered up. For centuries, this place had been a temple of obedience, a grave for free will. Now, in a single breath, the silence was shattered. Mason's crew stood behind him, quiet but firm, each one refusing to lower their eyes. It was not bravado. It was truth. On Earth, humans had endured storms, wars, and disasters. On Earth, they had already bent their backs to nature itself, but never to a tyrant. The High Consul's voice trembled with fury. "Do you think you are strong enough to stand against us?" He raised a clawed hand and the chamber lights flared. Images appeared in the air. Fleets the size of continents, armies spread across worlds, weapons that could tear stars apart. "This is our power," he roared. "This is the weight that will crush you if you refuse." The humans did not move. Their eyes flickered with something strange, not fear but memory. They had seen war too on a small blue world far away. They had seen fire consume cities, seen skies filled with smoke, seen nations rise and fall. Compared to that, this was only another challenge. Mason raised his chin and replied softly, "We have faced worse and we still stand." The chamber erupted in chaos. Some leaders demanded execution. Others whispered in unease. The refusal had planted something dangerous. Doubt. If this fragile race could stand against the Empire's fear, maybe others could too. The consul pounded his throne to silence the uproar. "Then you will prove yourselves," he thundered. "If you will not kneel, then you will face our trials." The humans exchanged glances. None of them spoke, but all of them understood. This was no longer an accident. It was destiny. The Empire wanted to break them in front of the galaxy, but if they survived, if they endured, then their defiance would become a spark strong enough to set the stars on fire. And so, under the gaze of countless worlds, humanity's trial began. The Council thought they would watch the humans fall, but instead, they had just given humanity a stage, and the galaxy would never forget what it was about to see. The refusal. The chamber was silent after the Consul's command. Alien leaders leaned forward, their faces twisted with anger, disbelief, and even a spark of curiosity. No one had ever dared to answer the Council with defiance. No one had ever looked at the Empire and said no. Guards stepped forward, weapons raised, their armored boots striking the stone floor in perfect rhythm. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. The humans stood in the center, small against the endless circle of giants. But none of them moved. None of them lowered their heads. The Consul's voice broke the silence. deeper than any growl. "You will kneel," he demanded, "or your bones will pave this floor," as a warning to every species that dreams of defiance. The human crew felt the weight of thousands of eyes pressing against them. The alien leaders waited, whispering among themselves. "This is the end," some said. "They will break, just like we all did," others muttered. But Captain Mason raised his head, his voice calm and steady. "Humanity does not kneel." Gasps filled the chamber, sharp and angry. The words echoed again and again, bouncing off the ancient walls. Every alien heart skipped a beat. For the first time in centuries, someone had spoken rebellion in the Empire's hall. The guards hesitated, their weapons shaking. Even they had never seen such boldness. One alien leader stood up, his scaled body glowing under the lights. "Crush them now," he shouted, "before their poison spreads to others." But another leaned forward, his four eyes narrowing. "No," he whispered. "Let them face the trials. Let the galaxy see them break. Let their screams kill this spark of defiance." The consul raised his clawed hand for silence. He stared at the humans as though he were looking at strange, dangerous animals. "Very well," he said at last. "You will face the Empire's trials. You will fight. You will bleed. And you will learn what power truly is. If you survive, then maybe you will earn the right to breathe under our shadow." The guard stepped closer, surrounding the humans. The chamber doors opened with a heavy groan, leading to dark halls that stretched deeper into the Empire's fortress. Mason and his crew exchanged glances. They knew the Empire expected fear, but none showed it. Instead, they followed, their steps echoing against the cold stone. As they walked, the whispers of the council followed them. "Arrogant," one voice hissed. "Fools," another spat. But there were other whispers too, softer, hidden. "Hope," one voice said, trembling. "Maybe they are the ones." The trials began not in fire, but in silence. The humans were thrown into a vast chamber filled with machines that reached the ceiling. It was not a battlefield, but a test of mind and will. Holograms twisted into illusions, designed to break thought, to shatter courage. One moment they stood in the chamber, the next they were lost in visions. Endless deserts, collapsing cities, oceans of fire. The Empire's voice thundered above them. "Kneel, and the pain ends." The humans staggered as the illusions pressed against their minds. Some fell to their knees, not to kneel, but to brace themselves against the crushing weight. Their breaths came heavy, their muscles trembled. The Empire thought this would be the end. But Mason's voice rang out, firm and steady. "Stand," he said. "We stand together." One by one, the crew rose. The illusions screamed louder, cities crumbling, shadows tearing at their skin. But the humans pushed forward step by step, every scar, every memory of Earth gave them strength. They remembered storms, hunger, wars, and fire. They remembered loss, but they remembered survival too. And survival burned brighter than fear. The alien observers watched in disbelief. Species that had once ruled the stars had fallen to these trials. Worlds with power and beauty had crumbled here. But these fragile humans endured. Their minds held, their wills unbroken. One alien leader whispered in awe, "They are not like the others." Hours passed. The trials grew worse. Monsters from their nightmares appeared, claws and teeth ripping through their visions. Voices whispered lies. "You are weak. You are alone. You will kneel." But the humans answered with only one phrase, "We do not kneel." Finally, the illusions faded. The chamber lights returned. The humans stood at the center, exhausted, sweat dripping from their brows. But still standing, they had not broken. The guards stared in silence, their weapons lowered. Even they felt something stir in their hearts, respect. The Empire's first trial had failed. In the council chamber, the consul's claws scraped against the stone throne. His fury burned, but beneath it there was something colder, fear. Humanity had refused once and refused again. The spark was still burning, and if left unchecked, it would spread. The consul leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. "Then we will see how long you last." His eyes narrowed as he gave the order. "Send them to the arena." The humans exchanged looks as guards led them away again. They knew what was coming next. Blood, steel, and fire. But as Mason glanced at his crew, he felt no fear, only certainty. The Empire wanted to see them broken, but soon the galaxy would see the truth. Humanity bows to no one. Tests of power. The sound of iron gates grinding open echoed across the Empire's great arena. The place was carved from stone and steel, large enough to hold entire armies. Above, rows of alien leaders and citizens filled the seats, their voices a storm of expectation. Every world in the Empire had sent representatives to witness this moment. They came to see humanity crushed, to see the defiant words burned out of their mouths. The humans stood at the center, small against the massive space. Their boots pressed into the dusty ground, their eyes lifted toward the sky where banners of the Empire hung heavy. Captain Mason looked at his crew, each face tense but steady. They knew this was no trial of words, this was blood, and the Empire wanted that blood to spill in rivers. A horn sounded low and deep, shaking the ground. From the far gates, creatures emerged, tall as war machines, armored beasts bred only for slaughter. They roared, shaking the walls, their claws leaving marks on the stone. The crowd screamed in delight, believing it would end quickly. They thought the humans would die screaming. The guards threw weapons into the arena. Long spears, short blades, crude and heavy. Tools meant for prey, not warriors. The humans picked them up without hesitation, their fingers curling tight around the rough grips. Mason's voice carried across the dust. "Stand together," he said. "No matter what comes, we stand." The first beast charged, its footsteps thunder, its jaws wide enough to crush a man whole. The crowd leaned forward, waiting for screams. But Mason did not move back. Instead, he shouted, "Now!" And his crew split apart. The beast lunged at him, but a spear struck its side, another sliced its leg. The humans moved fast, faster than the audience believed possible. The beast fell with a cry, and Mason drove the final strike into its chest. The creature's roar turned into silence. The crowd gasped, a wave of shock rolling through the arena. One beast dead, and the humans still stood. The Empire had expected fear, but they saw coordination, skill, and a kind of fury born only from survival. The second beast rushed forward, even, larger than the first. It swung its claws, sending dust flying. One human was thrown to the ground, his ribs aching, blood in his mouth. But another pulled him up instantly. "On your feet," she growled. "We don't kneel, we don't fall." Together, they struck. Again, spears flashing, blades cutting. The beast screamed as their strikes landed one after another. Finally, with one final thrust, it collapsed in the sand. The arena shook with silence. For a long moment, no one cheered, no one spoke. The Empire's proud beasts had been slain, not by machines, not by armies, but by a handful of humans with nothing but scraps of steel. The consul's claws dug into his throne, his face twisting with rage. But among the council, whispers began. "Impossible," one leader muttered. "They should be dead," another said. Yet others stared with something dangerous in their eyes. Hope. More gates opened, this time releasing not beasts but alien gladiators, warriors from conquered worlds, trained for combat, each one towering over the humans. They carried shining weapons, armor that glimmered under the light. The crowd cheered, again, hungry for blood. Now the humans would surely break. The gladiators moved in, confident, their blades sharp, their bodies heavy with power. The humans tightened their grips on their crude weapons, their breaths heavy but their eyes alive. Mason's voice rang out again. "They want us to kneel," he said. "Then let's show them how humans fight." The clash exploded, steel against steel, sparks flying in every direction. The gladiators struck with brutal strength, but the humans dodged, rolled, and countered. Where strength failed, speed carried. Them, where weapons broke, hands and fists struck. The crew fought like cornered wolves. each strike fueled not by training but by survival itself. And one by one the gladiators fell, their weapons dropping, their bodies silent on the sand, the arena filled with chaos. Some in the crowd roared with anger, others shouted in awe. Never had such defiance been witnessed. Never had the Empire's arena seen prey turn into predators. At last, the horn sounded again, ending the trial. The humans stood in the center, battered, bleeding, but alive. Their weapons were cracked, their arms heavy, but their eyes still burned bright. They raised their heads, and without a word they looked up at the banners of the Empire. They had not kneeled, not once. The consul's voice shook the chamber. "Enough," he roared, though his words sounded more like fear than command. "These trials prove nothing, they are only tricks. Tomorrow they will face something greater, and then the galaxy will see them fall." But the galaxy had already seen. They had seen a fragile species stand against beasts, against warriors, and against fear itself. And somewhere far beyond the Empire's walls, whispers began to spread. A phrase carried from world to world, a spark passing from mouth to mouth. They do not kneel. The rising flame. The arena floor still carried the blood of beasts and warriors. The humans had survived, their bodies bruised and torn, but their spirit unbroken. When they were dragged back to their holding chamber, the guards refused to meet their eyes. It was a small thing, but the humans noticed. Respect had been born, even if the Empire denied it. Beyond the arena walls, the story spread like wildfire. Whispers carried across trade routes from station to station, world to world. A fragile new species had walked into the Empire, and they had not knelt, not before beasts, not before blades, not before fear. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had seen something new: defiance. On distant worlds, slaves in chains repeated the words. "They do not kneel," they whispered in the dark. Rebels hiding in caves spoke the same words as if they were a prayer. Merchants carried it in secret. Soldiers muttered it when no commander could hear. The spark was alive, and it was spreading. Inside the council chamber, the alien leaders argued. "They must be destroyed at once," one shouted, his horns rattling against the stone. "If their defiance spreads, the Empire will fracture," another warned. But a third leaned forward, his voice sharp. "And what if it already has?" Frida, High Consul, silenced them with a clawed hand, his eyes glowed with fury. "They are nothing but a tiny race, one world, one ship," he growled. "They think courage will protect them, but courage burns out. We will crush them so completely that their name will vanish and the galaxy will remember only their ashes." While the council schemed, the humans were given no rest. Their wounds barely healed before new trials began. Poisoned mazes filled with traps, endless pits of fire, puzzles meant to twist their minds, each one designed to break them slowly. But again and again the humans endured. They fell, they bled, but they rose again. And every time they rose, the Empire's fear grew. Captain Mason led his crew through each test, his voice steady even when his body faltered. "We stand," he would say. The words became a rhythm, a heartbeat, something more than a command. It was a vow, and every human kept it. Soon, even the guards began to speak softly to each other. "They do not kneel," one muttered while watching from the shadows. A phrase once unthinkable had now become dangerous. The Empire's own soldiers carried the spark in their hearts. Far away, across the rim of the galaxy, messages reached resistance groups. Oppressed worlds began to stir. If humans could stand, then maybe they could too. A rebellion that had been sleeping for centuries started to awaken, and humanity had become its fire. Back in the chamber, the consul slammed his claws into his throne, the sound splitting the hall. "Enough!" he roared. "They will not inspire rebellion. They will not live to see another sunrise. Bring the fleet!" The humans were dragged once more before the council. This time, there were no illusions of trials, no whispers of mercy. The consul leaned forward, his voice filled with venom. "You have defied us, humiliated us in front of the galaxy. Your words have become fire, your actions poison. Now the Empire will burn that fire out with war. Your people will know our fleets, your worlds will bow, and you will kneel as your kind is erased. The humans listened in silence. Every alien eye watched, expecting fear, expecting broken words. But Mason stepped forward once again, his body still scarred, his voice unshaken. You have power, we see it, but we have something greater. Q paused, his eyes locking with the consuls. We do not kneel. The chamber shook with outrage, leaders shouting, guards reaching for weapons. But it was too late. The words had already taken flight. The galaxy had heard them. The oppressed had claimed them. And now the Empire itself trembled. From the balcony above, a small alien child who had been brought by her noble parents to watch the lesson whispered the phrase to herself. Her parents pulled her close, terrified, but she smiled, repeating softly, "They do not kneel." It was no longer only humanity's vow. It had become the galaxy's rising flame, a fire the Empire could not smother, not with trials, not with beasts, not even with war. The consul realized it in that moment. Even as his rage burned hotter, humanity was no longer just an accident that wandered into his empire. They had become a symbol, and symbols could topple empires, clash with the Empire. The galaxy trembled as the order spread. The Empire's fleets, endless and unstoppable, began to gather. From every corner of their vast territory, warships moved, like dark clouds blotting out the stars. The Council wanted to erase humanity, not with whispers or trials, but with fire. One small world, one fragile species. They thought it would be quick, but they had already learned one truth. Humans did not kneel. On the ship Odyssey, Mason stood before the screens, his crew watching as thousands of enemy signals appeared. Each dot was a warship larger than their entire vessel, each one armed with weapons older than humanity's history. The pilot whispered, "They mean to end us here." But Mason shook his head, his voice firm. "No, they mean to scare us. And that is their mistake. We don't scare easy." Across the fleet, Imperial commanders sneered at the single human ship. To them it was laughable, a candle trying to fight a storm. "Destroy them," came the order. The first wave of ships advanced, weapons glowing bright. The Odyssey shook as blasts of energy slammed against its shields. The hull screamed, sparks flew through the bridge, but still the ship held. The humans worked with speed, their hands flying across controls. They did not have stronger weapons, but they had something else. Ideas. Where the Empire moved in, heavy formations, humans moved like hunters. The Odyssey darted through the chaos, weaving between blasts. They fired not at the strongest ships, but at weak points. Supply vessels, fuel carriers, command relays. Every strike cut deeper than the Empire expected. The crowd of alien leaders watched the battle from the council chamber. At first they laughed, but then the laughter stopped. One by one their fleets began to stumble, coordination failing, confusion spreading. "They are too small," one commander growled. "They fight like shadows." Another said, inside the Odyssey, alarms screamed as another blast tore across. The hull, metal cracked, fires burned, but still the humans fought. One officer shouted, "Shields at 30%. Another yelled, "Weapons overheating." But Mason's voice cut through the chaos like steel. "Hold. We will not break. Every second we stand, we prove the truth." Beyond the battle, whispers reached the galaxy. Resistance fighters, tuned into the fight, their hidden transmitters catching every moment. They saw a single ship standing against an empire, and hope, once dead, roared back to life. The Empire grew desperate. "Send the dreadnoughts," the consul ordered. Massive ships, so large they cast shadows over moons, entered the fight. Their weapons glowed like suns, ready to end everything. The Odyssey trembled as the dreadnoughts fired. One blast tore through space, missing by inches, the shockwave flipping the ship sideways. The crew clung to their stations, their hearts pounding. It should have been the end. But instead, Mason's eyes narrowed. "Bring us in close," he ordered. The pilot gasped. "Close to them? That's suicide." Mason nodded. "Then let's remind them what humans do best. We survive the impossible. The ship shot forward, weaving between the dreadnought's massive guns, too small to track, too fast to catch. The Odyssey slipped through defenses and struck at weak points no one else dared target. Engines ruptured, hangars exploded, fuel lines caught fire. The giants of the Empire bled in front of the Galaxy. The consul's voice roared in fury, his claws slamming into his throne. Enough, end them! But even as his words thundered, he saw the truth. The humans had already won something greater than victory. They had proven the Empire could bleed, and once that truth spread, it would never be forgotten. On the Odyssey, the crew fought through exhaustion, their ship breaking apart piece by piece. Alarms filled the air, smoke burned their lungs, yet their eyes stayed sharp. "We can't hold forever," the engineer gasped. Mason looked at them, his voice steady. "Then we don't hold forever, we hold long enough." Outside, the Galaxy watched. One human ship against 1,000, and still it fought, still it refused to kneel. The battle was not the end, but the beginning, a signal to every corner of the stars. The Empire was not invincible, and humanity, small, fragile, new, was the spark that lit the fire. The consul realized too late what he had unleashed. Not war against one species, but war against rebellion itself, and that rebellion had just found its symbol. Humanity's stand. The battlefield burned. Wreckage drifted across the stars, broken ships of both sides glowing with fire. The Odyssey floated among the ruins, its hull torn, its shields shattered, but still alive. Inside, the crew worked with bleeding hands, their breaths ragged, their eyes fierce. They had stood against the Empire's fleets and lived, and that was enough to set the Galaxy on fire. In the council chamber, rage twisted the High Consul's face. His voice thundered. Across the hall, crush them, destroy their world, erase their name from the stars. But the other leaders were not united. Some roared in agreement, but others shifted uneasily. "They should be dead already," one whispered. "How do they still stand?" Another asked. The cracks had begun to spread. Across the Galaxy, oppressed worlds rose from the shadows. Slaves snapped their chains. Rebels marched through the dust. They carried no banners, but their voices rose as one. "They do not kneel," they shouted. And those words became a storm stronger than fleets. For the first time in centuries, the Empire trembled from within. The consul's fury reached its peak. "Bring them before me," he ordered. The humans were dragged into the chamber again, their clothes torn, their bodies marked with burns and cuts. But they walked tall, shoulders straight, heads high. Not even exhaustion could bend them. The consul rose from his throne, towering over them like a mountain of steel and flesh. "You defy us still," he hissed. "You are broken. Your ship is nothing but scrap. Your people will be next. Bow now, and I may let a few of you live." The chamber was silent. Every alien leader leaned forward, waiting. This was the moment the Empire demanded submission. This was the moment they wanted to erase hope. Captain Mason's lips curled into the faintest smile. His voice carried steady, unshaken. "You think we are broken because we bleed, but you don't understand. Every scar, every wound makes us stronger. We are human, and we do not kneel." The words thundered louder than the consul's threats. The crowd gasped. Some shouted in anger, others in awe. The guards raised their weapons, but they hesitated, for deep inside even they felt it, the truth. The humans were not prey. They were not fragile. They were a fire that refused to die. The consul roared, his voice shaking the chamber. "Then you will burn with your world." He raised his arm, signaling for execution. But before the order could be carried out, a sound echoed through the chamber, not human, but alien. One council leader stood and spoke softly. "They are right," he said. The hall froze. Others rose, whispering, arguing, their voices clashing like storms. The Empire was fracturing before their very eyes. At that moment, alarms blared across the city. Messages flooded the council chamber. Revolts had begun on dozens of worlds, slaves tearing chains apart, soldiers abandoning posts, banners of rebellion rising. all shouting the same phrase. They do not kneel. The consul's claws dug into his throne, but even he could see the truth. The humans had won without fleets, without armies, without empire. They had won by refusing to bow. And now the galaxy had followed. Mason and his crew stood in the center, battered but unbroken. They had no crowns, no thrones, no weapons of mass destruction, but they had something greater, a will that refused to bend, and that will had become the galaxy's flame. The consul snarled. "This is not the end," he growled. "Your people will suffer. You will regret this." But Mason only shook his head. "We may suffer, but we will never regret. We may fall, but we will rise again because we are human and we bow to no one." The chamber filled with chaos, the empire splintering, rebellions rising. But the humans walked out, their heads high, their footsteps echoing like thunder. They had come into the empire by accident, but they had left their mark by choice. They had shown the galaxy what humanity truly was, a spark that became a flame that became a fire that no empire could ever put out. And so, in the hearts of countless worlds, one truth remained. Humanity had wandered into a galactic empire and refused to bow.